Hey, everybody. I'm Jeff Lemieux, joined once again by Taylor Twellman. Taylor, we spoke ahead of decision day just about 3 weeks ago. I got to imagine at that point, you weren't sure whether you were going to be seeing me again this season.
No, and lucky for you, you get to see me, my friend.
I think you just can't quit the Revs is what it is. I think you've got,
I mean,
you've got
look
a problem.
at me. I'm dressed in the blue. I'm like, the whole thing's ready. You know, I spoke with Oscar Pereja today. Jeff, no joke. He didn't even skip a beat. He's like, so who you rooting for tomorrow? I'm like, come on, Oscar. You know the deal. You know the drill. I'm rooting for Orlando.
Yeah. I mean, just to be professional about it, that's what you have to do.
Of course.
Pereja, he played 13 games for the Revs way back when. He's probably cheering for the Revs tomorrow.
Absolutely. It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
It's cool though. It's good to see. And I don't think any of us are really that surprised, Jeff.
You shouldn't be. We've been pumping up this team all year. Everybody should have been listening.
Yeah.
Well, we are here because the Revs are set to visit Orlando City SC in the Eastern Conference semifinals on Sunday afternoon. That game's at 3 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. A spot in the Eastern Conference final is on the line. And Taylor, I want to start with the performance that earned the Revs this opportunity as they took down the Supporter Shield champs, the Philadelphia Union, 2-0 at Subaru Park on Tuesday night. And you were on the call, as I mentioned, for that decision day meeting between the Revs and Union 3 weeks ago when Philadelphia won that game 2-0 and in relatively comfortable fashion. This on Tuesday night was a complete 180. What was different for the Revs this week?
Carlos Hill. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, Jeff. Anyone that's watched the Revs week in and week out, you know that. You're nodding your head because he single-handedly can change the complexion of a team going forward. He can give you different sequences. He can give you different options. There's just so many different things he can do. And I'm on the record, and I'll stay on the record for it. If he stays healthy and stays in New England for 6, 7, 8 years, he will be arguably the greatest player to ever play for the New England Revolution. He's been that dynamic and that special of a player because when you look at everyone around him, they just look freer. They look more comfortable. They look more excited because they know there's that option to unlock a team. There's that option to pull off a special play. He should have scored a fantastic goal. Unlucky it hit the bar or the post or whatever it may be over Blake's head. Just a fantastic chip. He is a very, very good player. But on the other hand, too, you got to look at Buchanan playing as a right back, right? That's given him a different vertical option. It's actually made Buchanan look a little bit more comfortable. You know, I'm on the record with you saying, you know, every time I watch him play, I'm left wanting a little bit more. Now, all of a sudden at right back, he looks comfortable. I thought they were very good making Philadelphia defend wide areas, which against the Diamond, they don't want to do. And 3 weeks ago was one of the flattest performances I've ever seen from the Revs. That's always a difficult one when you know you're going into a game. The playoffs are on the horizon. But I also said, Jeff, that halftime, I'm not totally sold on Philadelphia advancing that far in the tournament just because of how much energy they put into it. But their DNA is one-off games, struggling to seal the deal. This year they pulled it off finally against the Revs on decision day, but it wasn't that surprising that the Revs played that well and that Philadelphia really struggled against them, even though Philadelphia had won the previous 4 meetings.
I'm going to go a little bit deeper on Carlos Hill because I knew you were going to go that direction. And when you say, as you have said before, that you think, depending on how long Carlos Hill is in New England, that he could be the best player in club history, that is lofty praise considering a lot of the guys that you played alongside yourself. And you know, I think of the impact he has on a guy like Adam Buksa, who in the past 2 games has scored on one header. He had 2 other headers pushed off the woodwork. All 3 of those balls served in by Carlos Hill. And you kind of touched upon it a little bit, but Carlos Hill, the special part of his game, how much better does he make every one of his teammates when he is on the field?
Well, look at Gustavo Bo, right? He's just going to simplify the game for Gustavo Bo because Gustavo then knows I can play to my strengths, which is basically a second forward type of player, right? He's not an out 9. And with Buksa on the field, he doesn't need to be. But without Carlos Hill on the field, Gustavo was in between a lot of times. In between thinking, do I drop deep? Do I drop too far wide? Just go play the game because now you know someone's going to unlock it. But more so, Gustavo Bo doesn't have to deal with 2 or 3 defenders in and around him if he's playing in those precarious positions that don't really suit him, Jeff. And so that's where Adam Buksa is ultimately dangerous on set pieces now because the ball being whipped in is a better ball. We've seen that with a couple of his headers in this postseason. But it's also your wide players. It's also your defensive midfield and your support in and around him. It just simplifies everything. You know you're in pressure. You can play Carlos. He gets you out of trouble. If you're a wide guy, you know making a 45, 50-yard run more often than not is going to come to fruition. So now you start to do a little bit more extra. You start to do a little bit that isn't normally where you are without him on the field. That's what I mean. It just brings a real balance to the team and also a real excitement. I mean, this is the most money the Revolution have ever spent in their club history. Jeff, we talked about that going into the year. When you get all three guys playing, then it's got to come to fruition. Great for Bruce Arena and the Revolution. Carlos Gil's fit at the right time. Gustavo Bo's fit at the right time. And Adam Buksa seems to be firing on all cylinders, where it's been an indifferent year as a whole for him.
And I know it's irrelevant right now because the Revs do have a lot of those big pieces healthy going into the playoffs, which is when you want those guys healthy. But I am curious to get your take. Where do you think the Revs finish in the Eastern Conference regular season standings with a healthy Carlos Gil for the entire 2020?
Top four, undoubtedly. Now, I don't, it's so hard to judge what Toronto would end up. Toronto being in Hartford's a difficult one to, figure out, but I would have had them in the top four. New York City, that kind of thing. Now, granted, you would have asked me that. Now, if you're asking me after MLS is back, when I know Joseph Martinez is out for the year, then I'm saying top four, going into the year, if Joseph Martinez is there, top 4 or 5, but they're not finishing where they do now. He really is almost, I would say, 8 to 12 points better for what he does and certain things that he does for teams around him. Now, you're saying that, is Gustavo Bo healthy? Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. But for me, Carlos Gil, when healthy, the Revolution are a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. I don't think that's really that hot of a take.
All right, let's start talking about Sunday here in this matchup with Orlando, because you look at the Revs' first 2 playoff wins. They beat the Montreal Impact, who they were seeing for a 5th time this season. They beat the Philadelphia Union, who they were seeing for a 6th time this season. But on Sunday, they'll face an Orlando City side that they have yet to play this year. This is the first time these teams have played since last September, when they played to a wild 3-3 draw at Exploria Stadium. Now, you have covered both of these teams this season. So how do you think these two sides match up on Sunday in their first meeting and their only meeting of 2020?
It's a unique one, Jeff. It really is. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the Revolution have won in Orlando yet, have they?
Not yet. No.
Right. And
7 trips in all competitions, no wins just yet. 3-4 in the 7 trips in all competitions.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring that up is that, you looked at it, they hadn't beaten Philadelphia Union yet this year. Right. And so something's got to give. I will say the Revolution fan watching this, the Bruce Arenas of the world, the Revolution players, this is a completely different Orlando City team than in years past. There's a real, now granted, they're going to be missing arguably the best attacking right back in this league in Juan. Pedro Galese, he's out as well. But there's a real continuity in this group. There's a real belief that they're doing something right. Oscar Pereira's done a fantastic job. If Jim Curtin didn't win Supporter Shield with Philadelphia, then Oscar Pereira's most likely coach of the year. It's a different team, right? You've got a rookie up front in DK that's been spectacular. He's exceeded expectations very quickly. You've got an experienced guy in Nani, where in big games he shows up, and Chris Mueller and whatnot. But more so defensively, this team's way better than they've ever been. And so this is going to be a difficult matchup. However, if the Revolution play the way they did against Philadelphia and make sure their fullbacks are involved in providing that width, then you're talking about one of the best front 3 in the Eastern Conference, and Buksa, Gil, and Bo. So I think this could be a good one. If it's an early goal, Jeff, we are going to get fireworks. The other X factor, which nobody's talking about in 2020 until now, there's going to be 9,000 fans there, Jeff. 9,000 fans. The Revolution haven't done that in a while, right? Yeah. And so there's going to be a home field advantage there that we saw against New York City come through the screen. You're going to see it on our air on ABC come through the screen. What does that do in the weather down there coming from the colder Northeast? I think those are 2 things that obviously the Revolution have going against them.
Yeah, the Revs have played in front of fans, played in front of 3,000 in Philly, but that's a little different than 9,000 in Orlando in a playoff game when this team has been so hungry to get to the playoffs for, 6 years now. But you mentioned the two absences of Juan and Pedro Galese, and this is going to be a storyline on Sunday. And every team is missing pieces at this point in the season. Yep. That's not unique to Orlando City, but when you look at those two pieces and how integral they've been to Orlando being a much improved defensive team this season, how can the Revs potentially attack those specific absences on Sunday?
Well, I think it changes how Orlando City wants to play, right? Juan's going forward. He's almost playing as a wingback in the sense that he's another winger in wide areas. And so whoever's on his side can come inside. They create overloads. They create 2v1s and whatnot. Whoever's playing for him, that changes it, right? So if it's not someone that loves to go forward, then as a left back going up against that, even a left winger going up against that, maybe you can cheat a little bit. So that right side for Orlando City is going to be a huge talking point for a lot of people. Now, Galese's had a fantastic season, Jeff, and he's got a great ability to come up with that special save. We actually saw it in the New York City game before he got his first yellow and then ultimately his second yellow in penalty shootout. So Brian Rose, an MLS experienced vet, but is he the same goalkeeper? No. And so you want to test him early. This is his first playoff game since 2016 with the LA Galaxy. So that's an interesting take, but it's going to look different from Orlando City, mainly because one of your best attacking players in Juan at right back is not on the field. Whoever replaces him, it's just not going to be the same.
And Taylor, I know you're tuned in to this Revolution team. Excitement is building around this group right now, and excitement is building in the fan base. And for the first time in a while, it's not just excitement for the future. It's excitement for right now in the 2020 MLS Cup playoffs. And so I'm interested, Taylor, tell me why this Revolution roster, this current Revolution roster right now, has the makeup to get the job done in the playoffs, what this team needs to do to keep making noise in the Eastern Conference this season.
You just can't make any mistakes, Jeff. And I say that because it's such a fine line. It's such a fine line between this Revolution team and whoever, if they beat Orlando City, if they play Columbus or Nashville, depending on what players are positive and who's not and who's negative for the Columbus Crew. But my point is that you do have two really good special players in Gustavo Bo and Carlos Hill. Now, Adam Buksa is your prototypical number 9. He's not going to stand out. He could score goals, but you've got two really special players that can turn it on. We saw it against Montreal with Gustavo Bo's finish, and then we saw it obviously with Carlos Hill against Philadelphia and the way he played. Give those guys an opportunity to win you the game. And if you do that, then this team up against anyone has the ability to pull it off and to win its first MLS Cup in franchise history. You've got Bruce Arena. You've got that experience. He's got the confidence of going into these bigger games and understanding what it takes. But you do not want to look back and say, if we didn't make this mistake, then we would have got through it. Don't make any mistakes, because those two special players you've got going forward, they can win you a game by themselves.
I got to say, it does kill me that we're still talking about trying to win that first MLS Cup title,
Shut
considering up. Those teams that you brought it up. You said it. I wasn't even going to mention it. But when you said win that first MLS Cup title, I thought, all those teams Taylor was on, and they never able to get over the hump. It's going to happen.
Jeff, I had to call the 2014 one. I wore a black and white tuxedo so I could try to confuse the LA Galaxy fans that I wasn't rooting for anyone. But think of that. Like, come on, man.
All right. Well, Taylor, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little disappointed you didn't rock the number 2 outfit for the interview today, but I get it. You got to hold something back for TV. This is just revolutionsoccer.net. Save the good stuff for television. I understand. Taylor, thanks again, man. Looking forward to hearing you on the call on Sunday. The Revs in Orlando City vie for a spot in the Eastern Conference Final on Sunday afternoon at 3 Eastern time on ABC. We'll see you then.